Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into Sui, a blockchain with a pretty radical new design. Its whole goal is internet-scale speed, built for what they hope will be the next billion users in Web3.
All right, so let's just jump right in with a big question. It's something that really hangs over the whole crypto space, right? Why are most blockchains, well, so slow? After all this time, so many of them just feel sluggish, especially when a lot of people are trying to use them at once.
Well, a huge part of the answer comes down to one thing: how they process transactions. See, most blockchains work sequentially. You can think of it like a single-lane country road. Every single car has to wait for the one in front of it to go first. It's a total bottleneck. And this is where Sui's big idea comes in. They designed it from scratch to be more like a multi-lane highway, a system that can process a whole bunch of transactions at the same time, in parallel.
So how does Sui pull off this multi-lane highway thing? What's the engine driving it all? It's a really fundamental shift in how they think about data on-chain. It's something called the object-centric model. And let me tell you, this is not just some small tweak. It's a total rethink of how a blockchain can be structured.
Okay, so instead of having one single massive ledger that every single transaction has to wait its turn for, on Sui, everything is its own independent object. I'm talking about your tokens, your NFTs, even the smart contracts themselves. Each one is a distinct thing. So yeah, think of it less like one giant shared spreadsheet and way more like a whole collection of individual, interactive files.
And these objects, they basically come in two main flavors. First, you've got your single-owner objects. These are things that are controlled by just one address. Perfect for a simple transaction, like sending some tokens to a friend. But then you also have shared objects. These are the ones multiple people can mess with, like a smart contract for a DAO, or an auction, or a liquidity pool. And this is the key: the network treats these two types completely differently.
And that distinction, that is the absolute secret sauce to Sui's speed. For those simple single-owner transactions, like you just sending a token to a friend, Sui can completely bypass the slow, clunky, traditional consensus process. Think about it for a second. Why would everyone on the network need to agree on a transaction that only involves you and your friend? They don't. Since only one person's assets are changing hands, the network can just validate and finalize it almost instantly. And that opens the door for some seriously massive parallel processing.
All right, so we've got this amazing engine. But every engine needs fuel to run. And for Sui, that fuel is its native token, which is also called Sui. So let's take a look at the tokenomics, the economics, that make this whole system go.
First things first, supply. There is a hard cap of 10 billion Sui tokens. And when I say hard cap, I mean that's it. That number is final. No more Sui can ever be minted, which is a big deal because it's designed to stop runaway inflation down the line.
So where do all those tokens go? Well, here's the breakdown. And what really jumps out is that huge blue slice. A full 50% of the entire supply is set aside in a community reserve. This is managed by the Sui Foundation, and it's basically a massive war chest to fund grants, research, you name it. Anything to help grow the ecosystem from the ground up.
The Sui token itself is really the lifeblood of the whole network. It's not just for speculation, it has 4 really critical jobs to do. First, there's staking, which is how you help secure the network. Then you have gas fees, paying for all the transactions and storage. Of course, it's also a liquid asset, the main currency within the whole ecosystem. And finally, there's governance. Holding Sui gives you the right to vote on where the protocol goes next. Okay, this next part is, I think, one of Sui's most clever and unique ideas. It tackles a really thorny problem that most blockchains kind of just kick down the road. See, blockchains have to store data forever. But how on earth do you pay for that forever? How do you make sure that the people securing the network 10 years from now get paid for storing data that was put there today?
Well, their answer is something called a storage fund, and it's actually a pretty elegant solution. Here's how it works. When you put data on the Sui blockchain, you pay an upfront storage fee. That fee doesn't just go to a miner, it goes into this big pot, the storage fund. Then, that entire fund is staked, and the staking rewards it earns are used to pay the current validators for the cost of storing all the old data. It's a way to pay for storage into the future. And they even have a cool little feature where you can get some of your fees back if you delete your data, which encourages people to keep the blockchain from getting too bloated.
And here's the really interesting economic effect of all this. That storage fund creates what's called deflationary pressure. So think about it. The more data that gets stored on-chain, the more Sui gets locked away in that fund, taken out of the active circulating supply. It's a pretty neat feedback loop.
Okay, so we've got the high-tech engine with the object model, and we've got the special economic fuel with the tokenomics. So what's actually driving on this high-speed racetrack?
Let's take a look at the actual ecosystem that's being built on Sui and putting all this speed to the test.
And the answer, in a word, is DeFi, or, decentralized finance. The ecosystem there is absolutely booming. The total value locked, or TVL, which is basically the amount of money people have deposited into these apps, has just exploded recently. It's a huge vote of confidence from both developers and actual users.
And yeah, you can really see just how fast that growth has been on this chart. It's pretty much a hockey stick. And a big reason for this surge is that the Sui Foundation started putting that community reserve we talked about to work. They started offering up Sui token incentives to projects, which really helped bootstrap the whole thing, drawing in tons of liquidity and users.
And all that activity has fueled this really vibrant ecosystem. You're seeing some major players emerge, like the lending protocols, Navi Protocol, and Scallop, and also some really powerful decentralized exchanges like Cetus. They're all building and competing on top of this super fast infrastructure that Sui provides.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. Let's pull all these different threads together and just look at the big picture. Why does any of this matter? What does Sui's unique approach really mean for the future of Web3?
The main thing to take away here is that Sui isn't just another slightly faster version of what we've already seen. It really is a fundamental reimagining of how a blockchain can work from the ground up. You've got that incredible scalability from its parallel processing. You've got the totally novel object-centric architecture, which, by the way, was built by the same team at Meta that developed the DM blockchain and the Move programming language. And you've got those really sustainable economics with the storage fund. It's a whole package designed for a completely different scale.
So that leaves us with this final thought. You know that old saying, data is the new oil? Well, if that's true, maybe what Sui is building are the pipelines. By solving not just for speed, but also for the long-term permanent cost of storing all that data, they might be putting in place the core infrastructure needed for the next wave of really complex, data-heavy Web3 applications. Pretty interesting stuff to think about. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.